Welcome to the Urban Elementz studio. Today we're going to be going into the house. I'm going to be working on the computer. We're going to pull out the IQ stick, which is a program that allows me to show you up close the program of the IntelliQuilter. And on that, we're going to be showing you how to use the clip function to keep Panto inside the boundaries that you choose on a quilt. So wherever we set the boundaries, the pattern will not sew beyond that. It's going to only sew complete units of the Panto. So we're going to go inside and open up the program, and I'll show you exactly how that works.
We are at the main menu of the IntelliQuilter. I'm using the IQ stick to demo the process of using the clip function. We're going to use Design Sew Quilt, Start New. We're going to reset our clock, and we're going to be working with the Pantograph today. Ideally, when we work with the Pantograph, we would want to use B2B type Pantograph, which would not interlock. This will create the best effect on this type of quilt. We're going to work with entering rectangle manually, especially since we're not actually on the IQ or on the Bernina frame today. So the first dimension I'm going to use is the inside body of the quilt, which is going to be 43 inches wide. And I'm going to do 55 inches high and continue and hit finished. And we're not going to select our design yet. We're going to go hit back, and we're going to add a block, a standard block. This block that we're going to be entering is going to be the outside border of the quilt. So we're going to enter that rectangle manually, and we're just going to add 10 inches as a border. This is just a random number just to give you the visual effect of a border on the quilt. So we're going to do 53 inches wide and 65 inches long. Now you can see the visual representation of a border and the body of a quilt. So we can hit finished, and we're going to add a pattern. Add a pattern. It's going to be a pantograph, and we're going to select the block. The block that's selected right now is the outside, which would be the border. We want to select the inside body of the quilt, so we're going to hit select and then hit the body of the quilt. So you can now see the inside body of the quilt is selected, and we'll hit continue. So now I'm going to go down to my downloads and hit H for Fern. You can see that this design is basically flat on all four sides. It does not interlock on the two sides, and it does not interlock on the top or bottom with the above or below rows, the way that some of these other designs would. This is the ideal block to use for the clip function. So I'm going to select it, hit continue, select it, and hit continue. And you can see it fills the area beautifully, but you could also see that we have some areas where it sews on and off. And that's what we're not going to do today. So I'm going to hit the clip button here. Right now clip is off. We're going to hit clip on. And you can see that it has reduced the units to 2 full units wide and 4 full units high. So if we click on row height, what we're going to be doing is it's going to adjust both the height and width of this. And if we click on it and I start increasing the size, you can see that it's going to adjust both the number that we have in both the height and width. Here we have that was about 8 inches. That was a pretty good fit. If we go up in size, we reach a point where we could almost fill the entire space. But this is 17 inches. In my case, this would be almost too close to the actual size that I could sew out. I could save this and then recenter it, and I might be able to actually sew this out. I might be able to scale it up just a little bit more in the next step. But what I would rather do is scale it back down to a smaller size. The quilt that I used this on was an applique quilt, and the applique shapes were much smaller than this, so this size would be way too large. The quilting would overpower the applique. So I'm going to size it back down. I'm going back down closer to the 8 or 9 inch size. Okay, here we are at 8.42, and you could just keep playing with this a little bit until you get as close as you can to the edge. That's like amazingly close side to side and top to bottom. If I accept this where it is and hit finished, in the next step I could adjust the height and width, but I could also recenter this. So I would hit finished now, and I can accept the transition because it's never going to sew outside of this edge. So I can commit to these transitions. So now I can add or edit the pattern. I'm going to modify the pattern, select all, continue, and first I can move it so I could center it. So now it's centered, and the spacing on the top and bottom is great. That gives me a little bit of play for the spacing, but the side to side is a little bit close. So on the width, I would shrink that down a little bit. And you can see it's coming in from both sides equally. And you could just shrink it as much as you wanted to give yourself as much leeway as you wanted. Keep in mind that the bigger the quilt is, the more margin of error you might need for this. But you can see now how the clipping function would work on a Panto, and how you would want to use one that is a B2B format. One that would work well for a border would also work good with the clipping function. The more it would interlock, the less it would work for this function. So if we are happy with this, you could go ahead and hit finished and finished again. We can also select sew quilt and show you the Panto sequencing. So we select the first pattern to sew and hit continue. Panto sequencing. I always like to do alternating rows, so if I start on the left and finish on the right, my next row would be on the right and sew to the left. And I like to tie off in between and do the whole quilt. You can see it changes color, darker green, lime green, all the way down, and that just helps you see the different colors, which one needs to be done next. And you can even do a quick preview of what that's going to look like to stitch out. And we can start that off just to see how beautiful this is. Now, I used this particular design on the Radiant Garden quilt, so there's an extended version of this process on the quilt if you want to check that out. But it's a really beautiful quilting pattern, and I encourage you to look at that. I hope this up-close version on the IQ stick makes it perfectly clear how the clip function works, And if you have any comments, please leave them in the comment section. Thank you very much.